Hello, everybody. Well, this week, a bipartisan National Defense Commission issued a report on the status of our nation's preparedness to have a conflict, and it gave us a pretty stark warning. And I believe there was some testimony towards this morning. We see what's happening in Ukraine with Russia. We see what's happening in Israel with Iran proxies. And we certainly saw what just happened with Hezbollah launching a missile into Israel that killed 12 people at a soccer game, most of them children. These are brutal, brutal terrorists. And the messages that came from this report, when we see what's going around the world, and certainly China is at the forefront here, is that we are facing very challenging threats. And we're unprepared, or we're ill-prepared. We are not ready. So some of the findings is that the American public, as the public, we're largely unaware of the cybersecurity threat, which is one of the premier threats we see across the country, across the world. The U.S. homeland itself, in this report it was said that the U.S. homeland itself could be the target for a significant public impact in the coming years. So, you know, we talked a lot about cybersecurity. I mentioned it earlier. I just wrote an op-ed talking about the threats of cybersecurity. We saw what happened with CrowdStrike and how that could take, and that wasn't even a cyber attack. That's just how, I think, volatile and damaging an attack through our IT and our technologies can be. So, according to the report, the Biden national defense strategy simply does not prepare us to deter or to have us prevail in a conflict. That's a pretty stark warning. So what would you do if you were the leader of the United States Senate? Wouldn't you turn to the National Defense Authorization? Wouldn't you turn to the one bill that's going to set the priorities in a bipartisan way for the next several years for us to be able to turn back such an attack and for us to fortify our own defenses? And here we sit. We've got show votes going on, we've got nominations going on, and yet our National Defense Authorization is still sitting idle after it was passed out of committee. Ronald Reagan said, "We know only too well that," I got to put my glasses on, okay? "We know only too well that war comes not when the forces of freedom are strong, but when they are weak. And it is then that tyrants are tempted." We know tyrants around the world are tempted. And we know that those same tyrants are looking at us and looking for weakness. And this report from the Commission is a wake-up call, I think, for all of us. And we should be voting on the floor this week for the NDAA bill.